June 18th, 2026. BC Place, Vancouver. 52,000 fans on the verge of witnessing Canada's first ever home World Cup victory. Then, in the 51st minute, a challenge from behind and a sound no one in that building will ever forget. The loudest stadium in the world went completely silent. What should have been a historic celebration was about to produce another World Cup victim, and this one nobody saw coming. Canada's night at BC Place began with a sense of destiny. The stadium pulsed with the energy of 52,497 fans, each one aware of the weight of the moment. This was more than a group stage match. The roar inside the dome felt like the heartbeat of a country that had waited generations for a World Cup win on home soil. On the pitch, Canada made their intent clear from the opening whistle. Sile Lawrence struck first, then Jonathan David added two more before halftime. The scoreboard flashed 3-0 as the teams walked off for the break, and the noise from the stands grew almost overwhelming. Every touch, every pass, every goal seemed to build toward a single unspoken promise. Tonight would not be forgotten. For the players, the coaches, and the sea of red and white in the seats, history was unfolding in real time. The celebration felt as if it might last forever until the moment it didn't. In the 51st minute, the entire match changed in a single heartbeat. Asim Madibo lunged from behind, his studs catching Ismail Kone high on the left leg. The impact was immediate and brutal. Kone collapsed, his body twisting as he hit the turf. Players closest to the scene recoiled, some shouting for help, others frozen by what they just heard. A sharp, unmistakable crack that cut through the noise. Broadcast microphones picked up the snap, and for a moment, even the loudest stadium in the world seemed to hold its breath. There was no question about the foul's severity. It was the kind of challenge that ends nights and seasons. The celebration vanished, replaced by a cold, collective shock. In that instant, the match was no longer about goals or glory. It was about the pain of one player and the silence that swallowed a city. Jesse Marsch stood just feet from the collision, close enough to hear the impact that changed everything. In the space of a single breath, the noise inside BC Place vanished. The same crowd that had shaken the roof with celebration now fell into a silence so complete it felt physical. Marsch later described it as the loudest stadium in the world, going completely silent in an instant. The absence of sound pressed down on players, coaches, and fans alike. It wasn't just the shock of injury, it was the collective realization that something irreversible had happened. From Marsch's vantage point on the touchline, the stadium's energy turned inward, every eye fixed on the fallen midfielder. The moment became unforgettable, not because of what was said, but because of what was missing. The chants, the cheers, even the routine background hum, all erased by a single, devastating event. In that silence, the magnitude of the loss settled over Vancouver. Medical staff moved quickly, surrounding Ismail Kone as the reality of his injury set in. At just 24, he lay on the turf, his face marked by pain, but his composure unbroken. The oxygen mask pressed gently to his mouth made the severity clear to everyone watching, both in the stands and across the country. As they lifted him onto the stretcher, the crowd's anxiety hung in the air, a collective fear for a player whose game had come to a halt in front of tens of thousands. Yet in that suspended moment, Kone found something to give back. He raised his hand, thumb up, signaling not defeat but reassurance. The gesture rippled through the stadium, a silent message that he was still fighting, still present, even as his World Cup ended on a stretcher. Then, with his legs splinted and the pain visible in his eyes, he managed a wave to the stands. The crowd, desperate for hope, answered with applause. For a few seconds, the focus shifted from the injury to the courage of the man at its center. In that wave, Kone became more than a casualty. He became the emotional anchor of the night, offering calm to a nation that had been holding its breath. Nathan Saliba stepped onto the pitch with the weight of the moment heavy on his shoulders. He had barely settled into the rhythm of the match when, just 10 minutes after play resumed, a free kick was awarded to Canada. Saliba, not known as a set-piece specialist, stood over the ball. His strike curled past the wall and into the net, but there was no wild sprint, no leap into the arms of teammates. Instead, Saliba jogged straight to the sideline, reached for the number 8 jersey, and held it high for the entire stadium to see. The crowd's applause swelled, not just for the goal, but for the message. In that instant, the match was no longer about the score. Saliba's tribute turned a routine celebration into a public promise that Ismail Kone, even in pain and absent from the field, remained at the heart of everything Canada was fighting for. Ismail Kone's journey did not begin under the stadium lights of Vancouver, but thousands of miles away in Abidjan, Ivory Coast. Born in 2002, he was 7 when his mother brought him to Montreal, a new city, a new language, and a new set of dreams. On the playgrounds of Quebec, soccer became his first vocabulary, a way to connect with kids from every background and to carve out a sense of belonging. Montreal's multicultural neighborhoods shaped his identity, and by his early teens, Kone was turning heads in the CF Montreal Academy. His rise was steady, not sudden. Each season brought a new challenge, first in MLS, then a leap across the Atlantic. By 2022, Kone was wearing the colors of Watford in England's championship, testing himself against the grind of European football. Marseille came calling next, then Rennes, and finally Sassuolo in Italy's Serie A. Every move meant starting over, but he kept climbing. By the time the 2026 World Cup arrived, Kone had played in 4 European leagues, collected more than 40 senior caps, and appeared at 2 World Cups, first in Qatar, then on home soil. He wasn't a prospect anymore. He was a fixture. His debut for Canada's senior team came in 2020, and since then, he had become the player coaches built their midfield around. For Jesse Marsch, Kone was more than a name on the team sheet. He was the heartbeat, the box-to-box engine, the player whose journey from Abidjan to Montreal to the world stage made him a symbol of what Canadian soccer could be. That's why when he fell, it felt like something greater had been lost, a story of resilience and hope, interrupted in front of a nation that had just begun to believe. Jesse Marsch never hesitated when asked about Ismail Kone's value. There was no like-for-like replacement, he insisted. Not in Canada's squad, not anywhere close. Kone's game stretched from one penalty box to the other, covering ground, breaking up attacks, then driving forward with the ball at his feet. He made balance look effortless, always in motion, always available for the next pass. In Marsch's system, Kone wasn't just another midfielder, he was the link that turned defense into attack in a single stride. Losing him meant losing the heartbeat of Canada's midfield, the engine that made the entire team run. Maxime Crépeau stood apart from the chaos, his eyes fixed on the stretcher as it rolled away. For him, the pain on the field was not just sympathy, it was memory. 4 years earlier, a broken leg had stolen his own World Cup dream. Now, as teammates struggled to process what had happened to Kone, Crépeau became their anchor. He moved quietly among them, offering words, a hand on a shoulder, a steady presence that spoke of wounds both visible and hidden. In that moment, the task ahead was no longer about records or milestones. The team's purpose sharpened. They would finish this night for Kone. The shock belonged to everyone now, carried forward by a squad bound together by one man's suffering and another's empathy. Canada finished with 6 goals, the scoreboard glowing with a margin that would have made headlines on any other night. But as the final whistle sounded, the usual celebrations felt hollow. Jesse Marsch, who had spent the match orchestrating from the touchline, left the press conference early and headed straight for the hospital. The real outcome of the night was unfolding there, with Cohn's family waiting for word from the surgeons. For everyone connected to the team, the victory was reduced to background noise. The only story that mattered was the one written in pain and resilience, a night redefined by the human cost, not the numbers on the screen. In a tournament built on glory, one silent moment revealed the cost that never makes the highlight reel. As Canada celebrates a new era, Koné's resilience and absence remind us that every victory carries a human price. Sometimes the loudest legacy is the silence that follows. Share your thoughts below.